don't have good accents. If I try to do Canada, I'm going to go into Irish, then going to go into like
British.
who even knows?
We're just going to start talking British
It's just
accents
going to
this
go
whole rest of
across
the
the
show.
board in all the accents. Okay, let's just stop. Anyway, moving on.
Hey everybody, welcome into the second episode of Mics Are Hot. I'm Kaitlyn Vinci, joined by my friend Heather DeBow. Great to see you. It's been a couple weeks since I've seen you, which makes me kind of sad, honestly.
I know. The last time I saw you was Indy, so good to put your face in front of my face again.
I know. That is nice. And actually, you mentioned Indianapolis. We were there together. It was a fun time, right?
Yes, it was a good time. Indy's always fun because, I mean, if you go to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's an iconic racetrack. A lot of great racing happens there from all over the world. And so if you've never been, fans, make sure you go check it out.
Yes, we had a good time. We walked around quite a bit, saw all our friends out at the track, did a little rap for one of our pit crew friends. In case people don't know, Heather is a lyricist in her free time. She can write raps. And we wrote a rap on the ride home from, where was that, Richmond? Yeah, Richmond.
Yeah. We rode home from Richmond to Charlotte.
We performed it for who it was written for. It was actually pretty funny.
It was
looks
good.
On their faces was funny.
I think some of them were like, what is happening now?
We did that rap, and it was for the 24 team. And then right after, Mr. Hendrick is like walking up, and we had just done this, and I'm like, oh. Exit stage left. Don't mind us.
Exactly. We ended right at the perfect time, that's for sure. But if you guys want to know more about raps, or you want a rap written about you, just send in your requests. Maybe we'll make it happen.
She actually did a really good job. It's funny, Grammy worthy. We were out there, and when we were in Indianapolis, I was very pleasantly surprised at how many people mentioned the show. Mics Are Hot to us, including Kyle
that was
Busch.
Really cool. Yes, Rowdy gave us a shout out because we were with each other when he walked by and he said, "Hey, I like the podcast," and we both went, "What? Oh, thank you." And sometimes you forget, sometimes you forget. Oh yeah, we did put that out there, and people are actually watching and listening.
I know, and I told him to come on the show, and I think he indicated that he would. So maybe we'll have him in the future.
Yeah, and maybe now that we just basically called him out and said he has to, then we'll have him on soon.
No pressure. We're putting that out into the universe that he is going to join us. I mentioned Mics Are Hot, and I think I didn't fully explain why we chose the name we did for the show, and it is only our second episode, so I think we can kind of revisit the genesis of the show, what we're trying to achieve. So you tell everybody what Mics Are Hot really means.
Okay, so Mics Are Hot essentially is anytime you're around a microphone in the TV business, it is hot, meaning it is on. Even if you're not actually live on television, mics are always hot. And we just felt like that would be a good name for our podcast because of what we do as pit reporters and hosts in television. Anytime I've worked a radio broadcast too, when we're coming back from commercial break, they always say, okay, mics are hot. And that's just kind of letting everybody know we're going back live. Don't say anything dumb in this moment.
Yeah, exactly. Every mic is a hot mic, so they say.
Yes.
It's true. Of that.
It's true.
It is true, but it is kind of a TV term, and since we're both broadcasters, it made a lot of sense to use that name. But the theme for today's show, our first one was about team ownership and how it's changing. Today we have a very unique theme and a very unique guest. I don't even know if the word unique properly sums up who this individual is. Do you want to tell us what's going on today?
Yes. So we're doing the evolution of the gray area, and what better person to come talk to us than former crew chief for a championship winning team, Cole Pearn, everybody.
Oh, yes.
He's going to be
Pearn
on the show
star.
Coming up shortly. The Pearn star, yes.
Remember that whole thing?
I kind of forgot about it, but that is awesome. So good.
When I texted him to ask if he would come on, I was like, the world needs to hear from the Pearn star again. Because I'm sure people remember in the 78 team's heyday, and definitely his heyday as a crew chief, he was such a popular figure in the industry, and people always following him on Twitter to see what he was going to say, because he was just out there, completely went to the beat of his own drum.
Yes, I was just going to say that, because you said unique. Is that even a word to describe him? And I was going to say, I don't know what word to describe Cole Pearn best fits, but he definitely, walked to the beat of his own drum and was unlike any other crew chief that was there when he was actively crew chiefing the 78. But He's a good time. Very fun guy, very interesting guy, and I can't wait to catch up with him and talk to him about the gray area, meaning like how do these crew chiefs and teams push the limits when it comes to setup and things they can do to get as much speed as possible in their race cars. And, I mean, everybody kind of does that, right? It's a challenge to be innovative and creative and come up with ways to beat your competitors. So we'll talk to him about that shortly, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. And I think, too, just diving into kind of what crew chiefs go through, I think on the heels of the Indianapolis race, after we saw everything with Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson, there is so much on these crew chiefs' shoulders to manage and make split-second decisions in the moment on strategy, this, that, and the other. And it's so much data to keep up with, right? And sometimes things happen, mistakes happen, whether it's on the driver or it's on the crew chief or a combination of both. I think that that's really interesting too, because I think the pressure on crew chiefs is often overlooked because everyone's so hyper focused on the competitors, which is fair. But usually the crew chief is the first to go when things aren't going well. So they feel that weight, I think, tremendously.
Oh yeah, and I don't want that job, that's for sure.
I would not be good at that job. I also can't do math, so I would have been like, oh, you're gonna run out of fuel in 10 laps. Instead it was 1.
Yeah, well, that's why you have your engineer to help you out with that, Kaitlyn. So if you were a crew chief, I'm sure we could find somebody that's excellent at math to be your sidekick. And it's not me, because I'm not good at it either.
But when you and I were at the track in Indianapolis, we were looking at some of the data on a pit box, and it was just so overwhelming. All the screens, all the stuff that's being monitored. And I don't think the casual viewer necessarily understands all the things they're trying to stay on top of. And
right.
It's a lot. And I think he would be a great person to speak to that. And also to just kind of weigh in on all the success that team had. The 78 back in the day, it was just like every weekend, that matte black car with the orange numbers up front. Always. Remember?
Yep. I think they won, what was it, 8 wins in their championship season?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely dominated, and just so cool and fun to watch that team in a different state based in Colorado making things happen. Like, just incredible.
That's a good point, because no one else has done that since. The Denver, Colorado thing was very unusual with Barney Visser, Furniture Row, and they were able to do it and do it really, really well. And I think that was interesting because they were kind of off on their own little island, which maybe, I'd be curious for him to weigh in on that, if that did pay dividends, is they're just kind of doing their own thing separate from everybody else in the industry. And if that was actually a benefit in some ways. I know it probably had both sides, its challenges and otherwise, but it would be interesting to hear him weigh in on that, our favorite Canadian.
Yes. Canada, eh?
Canada, eh?
Yeah, so
talk about it. Talk about it.
I don't have good accents. If I try to do Canada, I'm going to go into Irish, then going to go into like
British.
Who even knows?
We're just going to start talking British accents.
It's just going to go across the board in all the accents. Okay, let's just stop. Anyway, moving on. We're talking about the evolution of the gray area. And one thing that's changed a lot over the years is how the broadcast covers the race. So there are things that are now shown on TV that earlier on in this sport wouldn't be seen. So that also makes it challenging for teams to kind of hide things, if you will.
Right.
And then for us as pit reporters and hosts, following the rules and the rule book and keeping up with what's happening and reporting it, whether it's a, tech inspection failure or a post-race inspection failure, it's really a lot to keep track of and a lot to kind of follow and explain correctly when it comes to when they hand out penalties and things like that. So it's interesting. I've come across a couple things even this season in ARCA that have fallen on the tech inspection side of things, where one person said it was this way, another person said it was that way between the team and the official, and I'm in the middle of it trying to decipher what's happening and report it accurately. So there's a lot of interesting areas we can cover when talking about the gray area.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There is so much to keep track of when you're journalists, from year to year, the different rule changes and what's happening. I think too, when there's suspensions and penalties coming down the line, that gets pretty convoluted sometimes pretty quickly, just trying to sort through all the things that are happening. And then as they go through the appeal process and this happens. So yeah, it's a huge part of the whole sport, and it has to be. It's essentially the point of the whole thing, in some ways, is their creativity and how they're engineering things and what they do. So I think too, one thing we were going to talk about is the adrenaline rush, right? Of say being a crew chief or calling a race on a pit box. I know I actually do live with a crew chief. I'm not sure if people know that. Somebody yesterday asked me on social media, is that your husband? People still don't know I'm married to him, I guess. But anyway,
So wait, who are you married to?
Blake Harris.
And who is Blake Harris?
He's the crew chief on the 48. So I know a little bit about this, but I remember talking to him about just kind of the adrenaline rush of doing that job. And he was a crew chief, obviously, for Michael McDowell before he went over with Alex Bowman. But what would you compare that to in terms of your job? Just that adrenaline you feel before going on live TV? Because I definitely think that that's a real thing, especially when it pertains to pit road reporting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that's the only thing I can compare it to is like you mentioned, the first time that we go live, there's always like my heart's beating out of my chest in that moment. Like, okay, here we go in 3, 2, and then 1, and then you just start talking. And then from that moment forward, it's almost tunnel vision blackout. There's times where I literally will look at whoever's with me or next to me and be like, what did I just say? I don't even know what just happened. Like you just, you fall into this depth of this like zone of just in it. But up until that actually happens, you're nervous. But a lot of people say if you're not nervous before we do our jobs, whether it's pit reporting, hosting, being on TV, then that means you don't care anymore. So if you have the nerves, you care about your job, you care about what you're doing, you want to do good at it, you want to show that you belong and that you're out there and you have what it takes to be a part of the broadcast and do things at your highest level. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit with it, is just that right before you do that first on camera hit. Once I get past that, I'm just in it, and we're like in the game, we're in the sport, we're going. So I would hope that that's kind of sort of how some of these teams and pit crew members and crew chiefs and drivers feel. Like, you know, the drivers, once they put the helmet on and get strapped in, they're in a whole other zone, right? They're not nervous anymore. They're actually out there, and they've now taken over the role as driver, not just human being walking down pit road getting ready for a big race, which obviously a lot of them are going to be feeling the nerves this weekend as we go into Daytona, which is high intensity racing on a super speedway. I mean, white knuckle racing, if you will. I know when I'm standing on pit road, I'm holding my breath majority of the time when they're 3 wide and drafting, and then of course if we see the big one, that's always intense. So I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you, Kaitlyn. I know you have a little bit different of a role being in studio, but I'm sure you have similar thoughts on that.
Well, to the point you just made, that's one thing we are going to ask Cole about too. Is just those high pressure situations of trying to make the playoffs and like how you attack that and what that's like. And for sure, you know, the pit crews, everybody has their work cut out for them when it comes to these races. It just feels too like there's such a buildup, right? For us, there's a physical countdown that you're experiencing in your mind and your body, everything. You're hearing this countdown coming to you. The pit crews, they're like standing on the wall, they're watching the car come, like they have that tangible moment of, okay, it's about to go down, you know?
Yep.
And so that's intense. I mean, all of that is very intense. But you said the blackout thing. I remember the first interview I did for Speed Channel. This is going back. I interviewed Kevin Harvick at a golf thing. And I remember finishing it and it was taped. It wasn't even live. And my mom like called me after the fact. She's like, "What did he say?" I was like, "I don't know. I blacked out." He said something. It sounded good, and now it's going on TV.
I'm trying to get better at remembering what people say when I ask them questions.
Right.
I do better with it now, but there still are times where someone will say, "Oh, what did he say?" I'll be like,
"Wait, what did he say?"
I have no idea. I literally, what did I even ask? I don't know. I just kind of blacked out and went through it.
No, I'm sure you know what people say, but yeah, my nerves are different now in the studio, and I've been doing that for a couple years now. So it's just different. But I know like Daytona, the first one of the year, you feel it a bit, you know, and then you just kind of, like you said, you get into your rhythm and you're good to go. But I think too, it is a sign that you care. It would, for me, it would be strange if I didn't really have some sort of like a reaction to it.
For sure.
Per se.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So we also asked the fans this week to submit some questions. On X.
Yes. Fan questions.
On X.
On X. X. I should write a rap about that. X.
Maybe
something. I don't know.
I know.
I'll come up with
it. I keep slipping up and still calling it Twitter, but it will always be Twitter, I think, in my head. I can't get used to the whole X thing.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. So do you want to read the first one?
Yeah. So Phil Spain, he said that there's a TikTok trend about girl dinner. And so I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's kind of funny. But he wanted to know what would our pit reporter dinner be, or like the snacks and things like that that keep us going while we're at the track or in studio. So I love snacks. I love food. Anybody that's seen me on pit road probably has seen me eating once, if not twice, during a race. Now, I don't eat a lot prior to the race, so I don't have a big meal or a big lunch or anything like that. But during, you can find me eating Kind bars. Occasionally, I'll have an apple. But one of my clutch favorite snacks is a Uncrustable, the strawberry flavor. I will definitely steal those, especially on a cup race, because they bring them by on carts, and I'll kind of snag one as they go by. Maybe a banana, but depending on how hungry I am, literally anything I can get my hands on too. I've been known to eat, chicken fingers and pizza. Oh yeah. During the Coke 600 this year. Well, that day was the longest day I think ever recorded in history with racing, because we had Xfinity first, and then we put that on pause, then went to the Coke 600, then went back to Xfinity. So there was a lot of eating on pit road. I know I wasn't the only one. A lot of snacks.
That's
snacks. Fair. So that would be for me. What's your favorite snacks, Kaitlyn?
I mean, so when I was on pit road, it was kind of anything goes, whatever you can kind of, to your point, whatever you can grab to survive. But in studio, I don't really eat a whole lot before the show, because we come in, we do meetings, we're in hair and makeup. We do have like food brought in, so I will grab some of that sometimes. But I always need an energy drink, and I hate to admit that, but that is just the reality. It's kind of just like a crutch, I think, at this point. It was Monster. I was a very dedicated Monster drinker. Mm-hmm. Now it's Celsius. That's what I usually go for. Celsius is just having a big moment in the sport. It's everywhere. People are always drinking at the racetrack. So gotta have an energy drink to give me a boost to get through whatever I got going on. Because usually once I finish the show, I come home and I take care of 2 small kids by myself. So once the show is over, really the work is only beginning for me for the rest of the day. So it needs to sustain for a while.
For sure. You definitely need that energy boost for that. Okay, so second question was from Randy Sauer, and he was wondering, how are race assignments made? He said he notices some pit reporters at specific series every week, or some are working multiple series. Some appear to be on a case-by-case situation for the weekend. So, Kaitlyn, what would your answer be for Mr. Randy on that?
So the pit selections are divided amongst the pit road reporters. That's predetermined on who will get what section. It's usually divided down the middle if there's 2, or it's broken into 3 if you have 3 pit reporters. So you know ahead of time which teams you're going to be assigned to for the race. Now, I know in the past, when I was a race day reporter for 7 years, like championship race weekend, there would be 2 reporters on site, and the 4 teams would be divided. So you would be focused in on 2 teams for the whole weekend, kind of embedded with that group. And that way you knew to just focus on them for the weekend, which was always kind of fun. The championship weekend had a different feel to it. And it's different too, when you're a pit reporter, because that's obviously not the only people in the race, but it's the main ones that you're focused on, even though you still are telling the stories of the other comers and goers and things like that. But it just kind of simplifies it. It's 4 people. It's kind of simple.
Yeah, for sure. And then for him wondering, I think he was also wondering as far as who is going to be on which race weekend. So prior to the season even starting, we do get our schedules sent out to us. Everybody's kind of on different contracts. Some are freelance, some are full-time with Fox. So yes, you will see some specifically to a specific series, and then you will see some of us jump in and out on some other races or multiple series. Even if maybe somebody last minute can't make a race, you might get thrown in last minute on something. So there's really no rhyme or reason, Randy, on who's on what, to be honest with you. It just kind of is up to the big bosses and who they decide they want to put on which shows for the season, or for either the first half of the season, second half. It's all a little bit different. So, yeah.
All right. So those are the X questions of the week. And we're going to keep doing that throughout the podcast, just doing a call to action and asking you guys to send in questions, anything you might want to know. As promised, Cole Pearn is joining the show, and it is so great to see you. In case people have forgotten, you are a champion in the Cup Series as a crew chief, keeper of 24 wins as well. I know we're going to talk plenty about your career highlights, but it's so good to see you because it's been so long. You've been out of the sport for a couple of years now, and you're back home in Canada. What have you been doing since you left the sport? I feel like so many people want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. It's been 4 years already, which is wild. that's crazy how fast it goes. Kind of had a pandemic in the middle of it, so that was different. But no, I don't know. Yeah, been keeping busy. Got 2 kids, and yeah, run a business, and still do work and racing with JGR. So yeah, I don't know. Time seems to go away. I try to do as little as possible, but it still seems to slip away.
Well, Cole, in honor of you being on the show today, I wore a plain black t-shirt so that I could be like you. I know it doesn't say Furniture Row on it. However, like I just wore this just for you today. But
Perfect.
thanks so much for joining us. You spoke about your business a little bit, and I want to talk about that because I think it's very interesting and I definitely want to come visit. But it's the Golden Alpine Holidays. It's the world's best backcountry experience. So
Debatable.
yeah, debatable. I mean, it looks like it from the videos that I've
does.
seen, but you can go there in the summer or winter and go skiing or hiking. And obviously, it's a little bit different from racing and crew chiefing, but you still have a team of people that work for you, like cooks and the hut keepers and chefs, guides, things like that. So, how does your role now owning that business differ from crew chiefing, or how is it similar?
Oh wow, you pretty much ran through it all. It sounds like you do research. So
I did my homework.
yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a lot chiller. Everybody's happy. I'd say that's one big difference. Like people go away skiing for a week and they come off the helicopter and everybody's jacked up, had a great week. It's yeah. Racing, I'd say most people are miserable. Like there's the one guy that wins, but there's 35 other people that are going home pissed off. So it's definitely a different vibe that way. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously owning a business. It can be stressful at times, but it's nowhere near the stress level. Everyone says that here I'm really calm. So I don't know. I said they should have seen me when I was working in racing. So I don't think I was that a lot of the time. But yeah, it's been good. Definitely a journey with, we mentioned the pandemic before, so navigating that, but yeah, things are going good.
Helicopter. You have to get helicoptered in to where these.
Yeah.
Yeah,
talk about that more?
you can only access by helicopter. So yeah, you fly in. We have 4 lodges, which is kind of different. They're just backcountry cabins, kind of, so to speak. So they each sleep like 16 people, including staff. Yeah, and then typical winter program is you're up there for a week. So you fly in, get dropped off, you're there for a week, go skiing every day, sauna, that kind of program.
Nice.
And then, yeah, fly out. So it's nice. Yeah. You're mostly out of, I think we've added Wi-Fi now though, but to the lodges, but other than that, you're kind of cut off from the grid through the day, which is nice.
You say you don't think you were a very like calm crew chief. I still, one of my favorite memories of you were mad about something after qualifying at Watkins Glen and you passed me on pit road. You're just like muttering to yourself. And I was so curious what you were even saying to yourself. Something about there had been a cloud coverage right in that moment and like qualifying didn't go the way you wanted. And you were just like on a mission and not happy about what had just transpired. But do you feel like there should just be some sort of rehabilitation program to bring people into normal life after NASCAR? Because it's such a unique deal.
Definitely takes some time, that's for sure. I'd say the first year I was a little bit confused. You're just used to the routine and stuff like that. So I think that was a weird transition for me, I felt. And then we had COVID happen. So yeah, I think as time goes, I feel like I've figured it out more and more every year. So it's it's getting to feel like it was a long time ago, which is, I guess, is a good thing. So getting more used to normal life.
Now, it's not often that we see someone as successful as yourself leave the sport. So kind of talk about what went into that decision, and do you miss it at all?
I don't miss it. Yeah, I kind of, if anything, I have a little bit of PTSD that I did it as long as I did. But I was crew chief for 5 years or so, but I was on the road for 12 years, as a race engineer before that. So it's a long time. Yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of things. It's never one thing that kind of leads you to a big decision like that. It was multiple things for sure, but burnout is a thing. I mean, we don't want to talk about mental health these days, but like for me, I was getting burnt out and miserable and just not happy. And it's like, I only got so many trips around the sun in this life. So I don't want to spend it being pissed off and not being happy. So, yeah, it was a lot. I feel like every year of me being, when I was crew chief, there was always something going on outside of outside of just the job of being a crew chief, you know, Furniture Row, we were adding teams, taking teams away, switching manufacturers, then shutting team down, moving cross country. And it was just always something, you know, on top of the already taxing job. So yeah, had to make that call, and happy I did. It was hard to do. You know, you make commitments to people and friends that you're with on the team and that side of things. It was hard to, you know, give up on those guys, so to speak, but it had to happen.
I still remember that phone call when you called Blake, my husband, to say you were going to be done. And we were both shocked. Like, I just didn't really see that coming, but totally understand your reasoning. And I think, too, the pressure that's on crew chiefs is often overlooked. And we were talking about it earlier. You know, they're usually the first to go when things aren't going well on a team. And so I feel like that's not openly discussed that often, just the weight of that's on a crew chief. And it's kind of timely given what we saw last weekend with Chase Elliott and Alan Gustafson and everything that happened during the race. And just, there's so much that you guys have to keep track of in a race when it comes to doing the strategy and making the right calls. What is that like when you're on the pit box and in those high pressure moments?
Yeah, I mean, I was never really concerned about, you know, getting canned or whatever. I kind of felt like you know, just getting the chance to do it was good. And, you know, I never really had it in my mind that I was going to do it for life or anything. So I tried to build my lifestyle that I wasn't worried about getting those, you know, the bigger paychecks and stuff like that. I think that can definitely add, you know, a lot of stress to people's lives when, you know, you're worried about, you built this life around having, you know, a certain set income, and then all of a sudden, you know, you screw up, and then what do you do? Right. But,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It comes down to your team. I mean, obviously the crew chief gets put on a pedestal, so to speak, but you don't do it by yourself. I mean, it's a full team effort. And I think that's the stress, is just getting the right people around you, and, you know, having people that you can trust and rely on, because you can't micromanage. You can't, you know, worry about what everybody's doing. You got to have people you can trust and let them excel. And that's what makes it work. I mean, I don't know how other people do it, but for me, that's how I had to have it. So you got to definitely have a strong group around you.
Yeah, and speaking of your group, the 78 team, you guys are kind of compared to a band of pirates, if you will. So would you think that that's an accurate description for you guys, or what was it like working with that team in general and the guys that you had in that group?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we're definitely a bit of a ragtag group. I mean, some outcasts, and so to speak. Yeah, and then just doing it in Colorado is you know, has its challenges, and you know, a really unique situation, being, you know, a satellite team in a way, but then also on your own, and then, you know, being across the country, and just all the issues that come with that. But yeah, it had positives, had negatives for sure. But I think just being away from the hub, you know, you really get a kind of us against them mentality. Naturally, you're just, everybody that is out working there is there to work with that team. You know, it's not they're not going to go down and switch teams if they can get another $100 a week or something like that. It's a life commitment to go out there and work there. And I think that was the good thing about it, for sure. Definitely everybody was, you know, there for the right reasons. So, but yeah, definitely wasn't easy. I mean, I know just the last year coming back to Gibbs, it was just like, holy crap, this is a lot nicer. Like, just having more people and having more support and that side of things. There's other issues that come with that as well, but I mean, it's definitely it's a different brand of problems, I guess.
So the 78 team at one point was kind of considered the underdog, right? And then all of a sudden, the 78 every single week was up front. And you, as I mentioned, got a lot of wins and crown jewel wins, championship. We've been talking about, you know, the pressure and what was tough about the job, but there were a lot of great moments for you and your team along the way. What are some of the ones that stand out to you, your accomplishments with your team?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's classic racer. I kind of remember more of the losses than I do the wins. So it's like,
Total classic racer.
we won a bunch of races, but I'm like, man, if things had gone better, we could have won a hell of a lot more. You know, it's obviously, you know, winning the championship was huge. That's, you know, I don't think you can ever top that. I mean, you know, it's so hard to win. It's so hard to have everything go right, you know, especially with the format, the way it is with the one race deal. Yeah, it's crazy to actually have it pull off. What's crazy to me is we won it in 17. I think we had better cars in 18 and 19, and didn't win. So it's just, that just kind of shows you you can do everything right. You can have all the preparation, everything that goes into it, putting your best foot forward, and it's still a race, and it's got to go your way, and you got to have a bit of luck. And yeah, it's I think to me that's definitely got to be the highlight. But yeah, just having the group of people we did and accomplishing what we did was is a big thing. You can't discredit that. Like you said, it was from when the time I got there. I mean, it was like, I remember I walked through the shop the first time and I called my wife and I was like, there's no freaking way I'm going to work here. This place is a dump. It sucks, So to go from there, to what we did is pretty crazy.
I always find it so interesting that racers have the memory of an elephant. You guys remember everything. You can tell us when you made a pass on somebody, what lap it happened, what date it was, what you had to eat for breakfast that day. It's just so incredible because my memory is not good like that. But we were talking.
Don't worry.
Well, we were talking about your team, and one person we haven't mentioned yet is Martin, obviously your driver. So what's your favorite or best story about Martin, or maybe one thing you could tell us about him as a driver that people wouldn't know?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an open-ended question.
Well, go wherever you want to go with it. Give us your best.
I mean, honestly, I think for me and our team, I don't, you talk about, oh yeah, you got Band of Pirates or whatever. I mean, I don't think that we would have been able to be who we were if it wasn't for him. I think that's one thing that often gets missed is just how his personality and who he is as a person made it possible to be how we were. Like, I think I look back on that now more and realize, how lucky you are. I mean, and just sitting in competition meetings and stuff like that and listening to, other drivers, you're like, holy crap, we're lucky. To deal with some of those other mental cases it'd be a problem. So, yeah, I mean, he's just a great dude. He's a classic one-line texter, still him and I will text, and it's like, I was just asking him, like, are you going to retire? Just let me know so I can come to a race before you do. And he's like, okay, just
okay.
the one line thing. But, I think for us, he would come in after practice, give us a debrief, and then he'd just get the F out of there and let us go to work, and he trusted us. And I think that was the best. That's what made it work. And then he never doubted that come race day, he was going to get it all. I mean, I just remember like being in competition meetings and everybody complaining about their cars, and we had maybe led the most laps and won the race or something, and Martin be like, yeah, I'm borderline wrecking every lap, and he's driving it that hard every lap. Yeah. And I think that was always what amazed me, is that, like, yeah, everybody's good, everybody's got good cars, but it takes that extra level of commitment to put the thing on edge lap after lap after lap. And, he's really good at that.
Yes, Martin is an immense talent. And the good news is we get to watch him for another year. So I guess you should come out next season if that's his final one to watch.
I was like, sweet, I don't have to go to a race.
I'm sure that's exactly what you were thinking. I was going to say, are you really going to come to one anyway? So we are doing theme shows, obviously, here on this podcast. And this one is talking about the evolution of the gray area, which is pretty much the whole point of the sport, right? And it has gone through a lot of different iterations, the rule book and how things have changed. How have you witnessed it changing over the years and the different ways you had to find creativity and engineering and the things that you did to the cars?
I'd almost call it the de-evolution of the gray area. Like, it's just, I mean, you can't do anything anymore. I mean, you gotta laugh. Like, you guys get guys thrown out for 4 or 6 races for a hole being off like 10 thou or something stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. That's what I love. It's everyone's like, oh, we want more passing, but we want all the cars to be the same. So it's funny. Like, you have a field of cars that are exactly the same, and no shit, nobody can pass anybody. But I just think that it's, to me, every year of the sport, the box just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's just it gets really hard. I mean, now with everybody having the same car, it's even smaller yet. So it's not any of the cool stories that you heard. Like, I think of the things that we had to do. You're pushing the limits of time, and like in the history of the sport, they're pretty lame. Like 10 years before us, they had really cool shit going on. I thought, you go back to the days of building a smaller car because there's no templates. I mean, every little bit you can do to do your job better is important. I think that's what gets more stressful. So it's honestly less gray area
Right.
than anything.
Yeah, you talked about some of the cool things they used to do. Like I thought it was interesting where they had like hydraulic systems to like lift or lower the deck lid, or putting like buckshot in the frame rails and then having a little door that would open when the car would go on track, or lead helmets for the driver for weight. So I don't want you to get in any trouble or anything, but is there one thing that you were proud of that maybe you did that you got away with on the cars that before the new cars, so that it doesn't matter anymore if you were to tell us?
I don't know. I don't think I have anything really that cool. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I do remember, not to throw, I can throw Todd Barrier under the bus, but I do remember when I started RCR, they had like a whole fuel system, and they got caught for this, but it was just like they could put the gas tank was so full that they had like a false tank in there that like there was basically no fuel in there for qualifying. So that was I was like, wow, that's sweet, So
Sweet.
yeah, we didn't have anything that cool, I could say.
I remember a funny story though that happened in Pocono, because there's just different shenanigans going on, right? Through Tech Line and this, that, and the other. My husband was underneath the car, like hanging on to it, I think.
Oh yeah.
Going through, and
Yeah.
Slugger Labby saw him at the time, was like, "Hey, who's under there? Is there a human body?"
I remember we changed the truck arm slug in the Tech Line. And I can't remember why we had to do that. I think maybe they were like started policing just how they were holding the skew gauge different or something like that. And like we knew we weren't going to make it. And
That's funny.
and then that's time when you like get penalized if you go around again or whatever. So it was like we either were going to get a penalty or have to change it. And I remember Blake, got under there and changed it while we were pushing the car in line and got a drug through and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. There's countless things like that where you just shit has to happen, and you're like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? It's like we're either gonna get in trouble, but
Right.
it's funny. Most of the time, you're going through tech, and people are like, oh, you're pushing it or whatever, and you're like, it's just hard to pass. You're like, there's nothing more you want to do than pass tech, like, but it's maybe we're just stupid and trying to be too tight on things, but it's just hard. I mean, it's just the box got so small, the variance in what you're doing gets so small. It's a challenge.
So you talked about it. The Cup guys are going into Daytona this weekend. It's a cutoff race. Obviously, it's intense with super speedway racing. But if you were in that position, is there anything that you could do as far as setup goes, or what would you be approaching the weekend with in order to, if you were in a must-win situation, make the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, maybe do anything you can for good luck. I was incredibly superstitious, so I would probably be
You're
doing
not going to
every
share what your good luck thing was in Daytona, right?
No, I never had good luck in Daytona, so I never found
I thought there was a certain funny things you guys would do, superstition.
There are some other tracks maybe that there's some funny stories, but I never had good luck in Daytona, that's for sure. I hated that place, so it's one of the things I don't know, never had a good experience in Daytona. I can't.
That's fair.
And I think the year we finished second and Denny beat us by a couple seconds and everybody was pissed off. We got close and I was stoked. I was like, I can't believe we finished second.
Finished a race. I know. And Martin doesn't like that. I mean, Martin's pretty open about not being a big fan of the super speedway races.
All right. So on our podcast, we do a segment called What Fuels You? So obviously things have changed a little bit. You're not in NASCAR anymore, but you have your own business venture and you're in Canada. So what would you say fuels you about your passions?
Right now, I just kind of like being active and being outside and getting to do that stuff. I like crashing my mountain bike. I don't like crashing my mountain bike, but I do crash my mountain bike a lot. So yeah, for me, I grew up racing and driving myself. So and skiing, playing hockey, those sort of things. So I kind of like the adrenaline side of it, and being on a crew chief and stuck in front of a laptop looking at squiggly lines a lot, you definitely lose that. So I think for me, being away from the sport a bit more now, that's what fuels me, is just trying to make up on all those times and spending time with my kids. I mean, they're an almost 11-year-old and 9-year-old, so there's only a few more years before they think don't think I'm cool anymore. So trying to soak those moments up where they actually still like you. And yeah, I think that all that really is what gets me up in the morning these days.
Something
there-
tells me you'll always be a cool dad. FYI.
Yes.
I
For
don't
sure.
know.
Are there any bucket list places, like anywhere in the world, if you could go mountain bike or ski, that you haven't been yet that you want to go to?
Going to Mexico this fall mountain biking, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I've been dabbling in mountain bike racing, which is a really stupid thing to do. Barreling down in insane trails trying to race for nothing is really dumb. So I question my sanity a little bit there. But no, skiing, honestly, where we live is the best. I mean, I've traveled around for skiing, and British Columbia is just, hands down the best skiing there is. So I think that's my dream, is like, I can take my kids to school in the morning and then hop on a snowmobile and just ride snowmobile up for an hour or so into the mountains, and then climb mountains, go skiing, come back to the sled back to my truck, and then be back for school pickup. It's my dream
life.
day.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
wonderul.
It does. Blake
That's
and I
the
were
best.
talking the other day how we want to come visit you in the off season. So you down for that? You cool with that?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's fun to have visitors. It's it was kind of weird there for a bit not having any, but yeah, it seems like people are more apt to travel now, which is good. So yeah,
Do we have to be
not an easy place
helicoptered
to get to.
in?
It's a day.
Okay.
I mean, I know driving. I think when we moved from North Carolina to here, we had two U-Haul trucks, and Carrie was in one, I was in the other, and it took us 4 days with the kids. And it's like,
Oh,
oh
wow.
crap, this is far.
That's
Yeah.
a long move for sure.
Yeah, it is a long move.
So couple other racing related questions. Since you left the sport, I know you still obviously pay attention to it. They've done a lot of different things. They've tried out different venues, street course racing, dirt racing. Is there something that you've seen them do that you're like, oh, that was a big success, right? You enjoyed watching that particular event.
I was always a huge pusher on the street course thing for a long time. So, and then I didn't watch Chicago. I'm sorry, I was busy that day and I didn't actually watch it. So it was kind of funny, but I always thought, like, when I raced back in the NASCAR days, it was like we would go to Toronto Indy and we'd go to Vancouver Indy, and we would just race on the Saturday before the IndyCar race. And it's like, man, there'd be like 140,000 people there on a Saturday to watch the race. And I'm like, to me, it always made sense. I mean, you look at like a sports arena, right? It's going to do way better in a downtown market than it is
Right.
in some countryside where everybody's got to drive out there to get there. I mean, you think like going to Bristol, example, like it's a pain in the ass to get there. Like, you're flying in somewhere, it's like up in the mountains, hotels are expensive, like, versus being in a downtown area, everybody's there already. To me, I'm stoked they're trying those things and doing that side of things. I wish the car didn't suck, but yeah, I think they're doing good on the venues for sure.
Cole is still Cole. You were
Yes.
always so opinionated, and on Twitter and everything, you're still who you are.
I'm not anymore. I try not to argue with race fans on the internet.
Well, I think we know the answer to this question of if you would come back, but I guess let me switch it. What would it take to get you back to NASCAR? Maybe an event, maybe a specific driver to work with, something like that, maybe?
I don't see it.
Okay.
I don't have that answer. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy doing what I do now with Gibbs. I get to work on the technical side, which is what I think I realized, after a year or so away, like what I actually missed. And it's like, I like the technical aspect of the sport, and that I get to work a bit on that right now, and hopefully help the teams not screw them up is good. I think I'm just really happy doing that. I don't see any scenario where getting back in the grind and the travel and all that is good. It's like I can sit in about one meeting a week and I listen to what's going on in the sport and NASCAR and those issues, and it's like, I'm good. It's like,
Right.
keeps me from ever being romantic about it, which is perfect.
Well, it's so nice to see you. I have so much respect for you and everything you've achieved in your career. You're always one of my favorite people to listen to speak about the sport and listen to your opinions on it. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your skiing and adventures to join us.
Oh, it's sweet. Yeah, we're been in wildfire smoke, so this is a good time.
Yeah.
Not hard to do much when you can't go outside.
There you go. Well, thanks. Seriously, we appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Well, he was awesome, as I knew he would be. He never shies away from telling it how it is, right?
Yes, I love the truth behind
I
what
do
he's
too.
saying, just from his own personal experiences. And Cole's always so much fun. I know you and I have both had experiences with him at the track, and just what a good time he is. So I'm glad we were able to catch up with him and see what he's up to for sure.
Yeah, good person. It was so fun to watch that team too when they were just having a lot of success. It was pretty remarkable. So, what are we looking forward to? It's time for our pit whip. What's on tap for the weekend ahead, and also tell me what you were doing prior to this week, because I know you were super busy. So I'm sure you have another travel weekend up ahead.
Oh, yeah. So I just went to Watkins Glen and Springfield, Illinois. We had 2 ARCA races, one on Friday, one on Sunday. So I was on 6 different flights to make that whole weekend happen.
Were any delayed?
So 2 of them were delayed. It was coming home. So let me just give you the whole synopsis. It was Phoenix to Detroit, Detroit to Elmira, Elmira to Detroit, Detroit to St. Louis, then drive an hour and a half over to Springfield. Then it was Springfield to Chicago, Chicago to Phoenix. Now, my flight from Springfield to Chicago was delayed about an hour, so I was getting a little nervous. But then my flight out of Chicago was also delayed about an hour, which you can count on from Chicago O'Hare. Anyone that hasn't been through there, you're going to get delayed. I made it home Sunday night. So I started on, Thursday, flew out, and then came home Sunday night. So six flights, 2 races, 4 days, boom shakalaka. That was my weekend.
You had that really, just knowing all the numbers, I'm impressed. So
I had to keep it all straight to make sure I wouldn't miss anything, because I was a little nervous about logistically making it.
Very good. Love the travel. So what are you doing this weekend?
So this weekend we go to the Milwaukee Mile. So we have trucks and ARCA in Milwaukee. I'll be on the ARCA broadcast, and then I'll be pit spotting the truck race again, and that happens on Sunday, but I'll be there Friday to Sunday evening. So I'm looking forward to it, because I believe it's the first time trucks are going back there in a long time. ARCA's been there the last 2 years.
Right.
And a mile race should put on a good show for us. But we've had some really good winners in ARCA lately, like Brent Cruz at just 15 years old in his second start, won at Springfield. And he also had a great race at Watkins Glen. He finished 3rd. And I know we talked about what we deal with in Victory Lane in our last episode. So this time I had mentioned that Jesse at his last win was, out of breath and looked like he might toss his cookies. Well, this time he did toss his cookies. So that was really interesting. Yeah, it definitely happens. But luckily I didn't see it happen. He just had some remainder on his driver's suit. So some residue. So Shannon Rush came in and helped him out with that and got it off the fire suit mid-interview. So that was interesting, but you never know what's going to happen out there.
You
Kaitlyn.
Never know what you're going to see. That is the truth.
But you had a big Sunday as well. You were on race day, right?
Yep, I was on race day alongside T-Bane and Larry Mack. We had Chase Elliott and Daniel Suarez on. It's always cool to do the Sunday show. I really enjoy that. But this week, obviously, playoffs continuing for the Truck Series. As you mentioned, first-time trucks have been to Milwaukee since 2009. We have our pre-race show on a Sunday. Remind people, the truck races on Sunday. You can catch that on FS1. But I'm just looking forward to the cutoff for the Cup Series as well. The activity at the cut line is really picking up. I don't feel like there's any guarantees necessarily, and there's some big name drivers still hoping to make their way in. So I can't wait to see how it's all going to unfold.
Exactly.
But, so that does it for us, though, on our second show here on Mics Are Hot. It was a good one.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. So if you guys are tuning in, make sure you can send us questions, because we'd love to hear what you guys want to know about either the podcast that we're doing, or Kaitlyn and I, or our upcoming guests. So send us some thoughts.
Send away, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Peace out.